Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, I'm here yet again. I'm here yet again to do another video on Deontay Wilder's resume. And this video is going to show the delusion of Deontay Wilder fans. And we're going to be reviewing yet again another video by the Fannon International Boxing Channel. At least I believe that's what his channel is called. This video was released about a year ago, because I want to see certain people's opinions on Deontay Wilder's resume. Because for some reason, Deontay Wilder, well, is not really a big, why does he have this fan base? Deontay Wilder overall is a very big pro-black figure when it comes down to the overall. So he has gained a big cult of personality and a big fan base because of this when it comes down to the overall. And those people who follow Deontay Wilder are pro-black. They are pro-racial. So it is what it is. So it would make sense why Deontay Wilder is a hell of a lot more protected with his record than, say, a Gennady Golovkin, who also has a little bit of a padded record, although his record is not as padded as Deontay Wilder's, and a lot of people are not going to like that, but it's okay. And a certain amount of other fighters out there that, I probably cannot think of. Leo Santa Cruz is another example. Leo Santa Cruz is another example of a fighter whose record is a little bit padded until most recently, until he had a fight with Gervonta Tank Davis, which, of course, is not a fight that he won. But it is what it is. The point being is that he was not in a lot of A-class fights. Anyways, so we're going to take a look at this video, and Fannon is going to take a look at Boxing Rec ratings. And overall, he's going to say, what does the title say? Debunked. Deontay Wilder haters still lying on his record, exposing the BS, all sort of stuff. And he's going to take a look at BoxingRec.com. Now, when I was saying that some of the guys that Deontay Wilder was facing was not top 10, I had certain people saying that, oh, you're lying and all sort of stuff. And then I figured out what they were talking about and why they were calling me a liar, because they were looking on BoxingRec.com. And I'm not saying that Boxing Rec is the worst website in the world for everything. But when it comes to rankings, Boxing Rec has been overall has not been greatly looked upon by many. So Fannon is going to show us top 10 guys that Deontay Wilder faced. But the problem with this is that they weren't overall top 10 guys, the majority of them. They usually were top 10 by the WBC or something else like that. Now, this is the problem. Because there can almost be anybody that's ranked in the top 10 when it comes to just one belt. I'm talking about the overall top 10, which is why I look at Ring Magazine's rankings better. And, there was this one dude, Watcher, who commented on my channel, and one of the comments that he said, when we went back and forth a little bit, he said overall, well, what makes Ring Magazine's ranking so much better? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Ring Magazine's rankings overall are the overall talented top 10. And that's why I take their rankings much more seriously. Because if Eric Molina was a top 10 opponent in the overall hierarchy when Deontay Wilder faced him, that's a problem. If Chris Arreola was in the top 10 of the division overall when Deontay Wilder faced him, that's a problem. Go ahead and take a look at the records. If Gerald Washington was in the top 10, now he was undefeated, but he hadn't really beat, anyone overall to get within the top 10, and I don't remember him ever being in the top 10 in Ring Magazine. That would be a problem. This is the problem with Deontay Wilder's opponents. Now, there is some that even he faced that were in the top 10 for Ring Magazine. So the three main ones that are Luis Ortiz, Bermane Stiverne, and was that it? No, there's another. Oh yeah, Dominic Breazeale. Dominic Breazeale was also in the top 10 at one point in time too, although we know he's not that elite of an opponent. But when it comes down to the overall, this is why Deontay Wilder fans try to argue that he has this elite resume. But anyways, let's just get started into the video and let's see overall what this man has to say.
What's good? It's your boy Fannon. All right, man. I'm going to address something again that I had addressed before, but I'm going to go through it and address Box Rec. Now, I did a video before where I showed these rankings that you see here. These were the rankings for Deontay Wilder's opponents in the WBC.
And exactly for the WBC, not the overall top 10. Listen, any of it can be by opinions. But when you talk about the top 10 for just one belt, this is what this one dude is trying to convince me of. You're lying. You know, Chris Arreola was ranked number 9 by the WBC. Oh, no, he certainly was ranked number 9 by the WBC. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the overall top 10 of the division, as in Ring Magazine. That's what makes their rankings so much more, in my opinion, authentic. I mean, Chris Arreola at the time should have never been close to that top 10 spot. Anyway.
At the time that they fought, right? The month before they fought. Pulled the PDFs down off the site for the WBC.
And for example, like we're going to, Gennady Golovkin fights tomorrow, because I don't know if I'm going to release this video today or tomorrow, but Gennady Golovkin fights tomorrow, on Friday. Well, what is the date tomorrow? Is it December 16th? No. Well, what is the date tomorrow? I don't know what the date is. Anyways, bottom line is it might be. But anyway, when it comes down to the overall, the problem with it is overall, man, is that when you take a look at it, Gennady Golovkin fights tomorrow. He is fighting a complete no-name. Now, I'm sure, with Gennady Golovkin having the IBF and IBO titles right now, that guy overall, they might say, well, he's undefeated. He's undefeated and he's ranked in the top 10 by the IBF. I'm sure that he was. But when it comes, I'm sure that he might be. But we all know that's not an elite opponent. Like, that's what I'm saying. It is what it is. And you also, even some of these guys that are ranked in the overall top 10 sometimes, you have to take a look and see overall if they belong there. If they're in and out very quickly, they're not really good top 10 contenders. You have to see overall how long they remain there. Because the talent pool will expand over time. A good contender, once again, as I've explained, is going to be there for years. They're not just going to be there for a couple months or a year. They're going to be there for years, at least 2 years. This is what I mean when I say, okay, I give him credit for Bermane Stiverne, although Bermane Stiverne I don't really see as an elite fighter, but it is what it is. But especially the Luis Ortiz win. The Luis Ortiz win he gets a lot of credit for, and I give him full-hearted credit for that. That's a very good win. But that is his only very good win, and that's a problem. Him and debatably Bermane Stiverne, but to be quite honest with you, Bermane Stiverne, once the talent pool got collectively bigger, he was pretty much flushed out of the top 10 immediately. So it is what it is. Anyway.
But for some reason, and not one that I didn't expect, people want to argue about whether these are the actual rankings of these guys.
My argument is not that they're not the actual rankings. My argument overall is that why are you just talking about one belt rankings? There's a reason why they don't use Ring Magazine. And why they're just using the WBC Boxing Rec rankings. Anyway.
At the time. And several people have come to my page and said, well, you really don't need to look at the WBC rankings to decide whether or not Deontay Wilder fought top 10 opponents. You should look at BoxRec, or you should look at Ring Magazine.
Ring Magazine, absolutely.
And the rationale for that is that somehow BoxRec is more unbiased, and it's less subjective. There's less politics involved in it, and it is a.
Well, I'll say this: it is subjective when it comes to Ring Magazine. When it comes down to it. But really all the rankings are subjective when it comes down to the overall. Bottom line is this. When it comes to... this is why I don't like the Boxing Rec rankings. First of all, when you take a look at a lot of their rankings are very subjective as well. I mean, they have Deontay Wilder somehow in the top 10 pound for pound right now, like near the top 5. I don't know how Deontay Wilder ever made someone's top 10 pound for pound in the first place. For him to have that type of resume and for him to only have one belt, I don't understand how you ever would have been made the top 10. If there should have been a heavyweight that made the top 10 recently before that Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder rematch, it should have been Anthony Joshua. But anyway.
Independent ranking system. Now, there's 2 things that I have to say to that. Number one, Deontay Wilder's the WBC champion, and he doesn't have the ability to fight people based off of BoxRec. Number 2, BoxRec is just as subjective and just as opinionated as the WBC rankings are. So if you're going to judge somebody based on an opinionated scoring system, you might as well judge him based on the only subjective opinion that he has the ability to follow. So
that he has the ability to follow. You know what's interesting, folks? How come Deontay Wilder only has the ability to follow the WBC? Why, Deontay Wilder was so focused on, apparently, allegedly, was so focused on unifying that division, and overall there should be one name and one person in the division, which I agree with. But yet he never ended up getting another belt throughout his reign. Yet Anthony Joshua, who got into boxing later than Deontay Wilder and had significantly less fights, has 3 or 4 belts around his waist. Tell me how that works. Yeah, Deontay Wilder was the one that wanted to unify the division. Look, once again, I'm not a Deontay Wilder hater. This is not a Deontay Wilder hating channel. But this is just to expose the stupidity and the moronic delusion of a lot of these Deontay Wilder fans. I mean, they truly believe that Deontay Wilder wanted to unify the division. No, he was never focused on that. If he would have been, he would have ended up getting the belts before Joshua. Anyway. And by the way, he also turned down a Vladimir Klitschko fight earlier on in his career. That's a fact. You can go ahead and look that up. Anyway.
To be clear, the WBC has a subjectively determines the people that are ranked in their organization. And so does BoxRec. But BoxRec does it in a different way. Instead of doing it by a committee, they do it by an algorithm. But the algorithm is just as biased and opinionated as the people that sit around the table. But first, I want to go through this and show to you why it's exactly in the rule book that you know that Deontay Wilder has fought top 10 opponents. It's in the rules.
Well, sure, he's fought top 10 opponents for the WBC. But how many overall top 10 opponents has he, by Ring Magazine standards, how many top 10 opponents did he fight? Because I can assure you, Chris Arreola, Archer Spilska, Gerald Washington, they were not in the top 10 when he fought them. No, they weren't. No, they fucking weren't. And I'm going to get a certain amount of these people overall that come at me, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Those people were not ranked in the top 10. Quit bullshitting. Just stop. It is what it is. Anyway.
This is section 3.3, A and B of the WBC rules. Deontay Wilder is a heavyweight champion, or any champion by the WBC, has to defend their title either by a voluntary or mandatory defense against a qualified challenger. The qualified challengers are laid out in Rule 3.3.
So if Tyson Fury faces a Carlos Takam next, which I'm hearing is very possible, hey, he's got to be top 10 ranked by the WBC. He has to be, to be allowed to keep that title. You know what the Deontay Wilder fans would be saying? Oh, he's fighting another bum instead of fighting Deontay Wilder. That's what they'd be saying. They wouldn't be making these same excuses. Anyway.
Here they are. There's A, there's B, and C. They either have to be a top 10 rated a contender by the WBC rankings, and I'll show you the process that they use to rank them. Or they have to be one of three things. They have to be approved by a ratification or a majority by the Board of Governors. The Board of Governors in the WBC has to say, yeah, you can if they are 11 through 15. But that's a yes or no. They may or may not let them. Right? So that's Dukakis, right? He was number 12. Or it can be a champion or highly rated boxer in another division. So they can allow them to do a unification fight if they want to do a unification fight. But that unification fight, even against Anthony Joshua, would have to be approved. It'd have to be ratified, right? They say, well, I don't want to fight a top 10 opponent. I want to unify. Hey, can I do that, WBC? And then the WBC says, yes, you can, or no, you can't. Whatever the case is, right? 3, another WBC champion, such as the WBC Diamond, Silver Champion, Champion Emeritus, or Championship in recess. So if they have a champion in recess, like, say, Keith Thurman was the champion in recess, and Sean Porter wants to fight him, but he's not in the ranking, but he's the WBC champion in recess, or champion emeritus, they'll allow him to do that. But Only.
Okay, anyway, so far I'm not hearing a lot of arguments to why Deontay Wilder's resume is elite. So let's see if this continues going on with anything, or if it's the same shit. Let's see. Current rankings, every boxer. So basically, he's giving it a breakdown of overall. Let's see, rule: the rating of a boxer is reduced if he didn't box an opponent with a rating of at least 50% of his own rating points within 18 months. Interesting. Once again, there's a reason why I don't pay attention overall to just the top 10 of one belt. Go ahead and take a look at some of Golovkin's fights once again. Now, Golovkin, although somewhat of a padded record, and when I mean padded record, I mean a little bit of a weak record. Golovkin a little bit of a padded record, nowhere near as padded as Deontay's. But when it comes down to the overall, like, once again, take a look at the person that he's fighting, tomorrow. Go ahead and take a look. I'm sure I can go search in there right now and say, oh, you know what? This dude is top 10. You remember when Golovkin fought Marcus Brown? You remember that dude? When Golovkin was still undefeated, he fought Marcus Brown and he knocked him out like within 2 rounds? Something like that. I could argue, well, you know what? He was top 10. That's the problem. But guess what? We all know Marcus Brown was not overall top 10. At least I don't believe he was. Maybe he was. Maybe he was. But when it comes down to the overall, doubtful. But that's the problem with this. That's why overall, all the rankings are subjective. But in my opinion, the best ranking system is Ring Magazine. And there's a reason why Deontay Wilder fans don't like to use Ring Magazine. Because when they take a look at all the top contenders, and let me tell you something, I'm not saying Ring Magazine has not had its bias here and there, but out of all the ranking systems that I've seen, Ring Magazine is the most objective one that I've seen. All rankings are going to be a little bit subjective. Because it all comes down to the person or the website to agree overall who's better than who, what resume. But the thing I like about Ring Magazine is that they usually go by resume. And resume always is going to be the most important thing when you talk about which fighter is above who. So when Ring Magazine has Tyson Fury as the number 1 right now, some might say, well, Tyson Fury doesn't have that elite of a resume either. Well, he doesn't have as many top contenders on his list as, say, an Anthony Joshua. When you want to talk about who has the most complete resume there, and, when we talk about top contender after top contender after top contender, that's probably Anthony Joshua. But when it comes down to it overall, when you want to talk about a person having 2 A-class wins, that's Tyson Fury. He has a win over Vladimir Klitschko and he has a win over Deontay Wilder. He was dominant in both fights. So it is what it is. Now, of course, you're going to have a lot of these people, you need to talk about how Tyson Fury cheated Deontay. Whatever. Anyway, I'm not getting back into that again. Maybe another day. But when it comes down to the overall, that's what I like about Ring Magazine. And that's why I also agree with their pound-for-pound list. I don't agree with the pound-for-pound list on... I don't agree with a lot of the rankings or the pound-for-pound list on BoxingRec.com at all. Personally, I don't have the best opinion of their rankings. And there's a reason why Deontay Wilder fans like BoxingRec.com, because it makes Deontay Wilder look better. But it is what it is. For those of us that really know boxing, we know Deontay Wilder does not have a good resume. All right? It is what it is. He does not have a good resume. I just thought that I would review this video to see overall what this guy's opinions were. He can overall come up with all the rules and all sort of stuff. We understand that at least the majority of them have to be top 10. But the bottom line is this. When it comes down to the overall, we all know. Let's just take a look at these opponents. Is Eric Molina, sure, he's top 10 for the WBC. Is he an elite opponent? Is Artur Spilska an elite opponent? Is Joan Duapas, is he an elite opponent? Chris Arreola, Gerald Washington, Bermain Stavern, are these guys elite opponents? Now, Luis Ortiz is a very good opponent, and of course Tyson Fury. But, I don't really count that one because I thought Tyson Fury very clearly should have won the first fight. And I had certain people bitching me for that. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. It was a draw. No. If you knew what you were watching, you knew that Tyson Fury probably should have won that fight. But it is what it is. I'm not here to go back and forth. But the bottom line overall, I just thought that I would review that video to see overall what his argument is. Every list is subjective, but when I take a look at the best one, Boxing Rec is probably one of the worst ones that I've seen, and Ring Magazine is probably the best one that I've seen. That's just the way I view it. But anyway, that's really about it for today. Thank y'all so much for watching. I'll talk to y'all later. Don't really have much else to say about this. But yeah, we'll see what other videos I can find on this. And that's really about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to y'all later.